new intel coming in on that Charlie Kirk investigation into his assassination. It's hard to report on this. You guys know, I mean, I think we were together live on the air as it happened. I knew Charlie. I was one of the first people to put him on TV some 10 years ago. As this kid is good. I can't believe what has happened. I'm heartbroken by all of it. On so many different levels, right? Just so many different levels. But I'm going to tell you, Charlie was amazing. He got through to young people in ways that, you know, we as the conservative movement, I don't think thought was even possible, because it had just been, you know, the youth had been commandeered, right, by these total leftists. And you think about academia and what these kids are being taught, et cetera. And Charlie came in with a plan to start changing this. And he was a missionary. He was an amazing guy. He was brilliant. I'm telling you, brilliant. He was great on TV. He's super tall, good looking, had it all going for him, all going for him. So when I report on this, it's, you know, it's hard, it's personal. And I think when you look at the FBI investigating this right now, it's very personal for them, because they all knew Charlie very well and they respected him and loved him. And, you know, at one point, I don't even know if this is public, I don't think Dan would mind me saying, but I think that Charlie was even going to take over Dan Bongino's show. You know, when Dan went into the FBI, it was something that was talked about. I think the world of him. There's new intel coming into us, some of which I had started to share with you last week, but I want to bring to you again. The FBI is now probing this militant group, a militant group that was hiding out in Salt Lake City. Some believed in the mountains of Salt Lake City. It was known as, I'll give the exact name here, Armed Queers, Militant Armed Queers group, and it was basically trying to, you know, get people to subscribe to this Antifa-like kind of philosophy that if trans people were not being fully accepted, then others deserved to die. It was a radicalization of people, and this, of course, happened right in the area where Lance Twiggs was from. Lance Twiggs was the roommate and romantic interest of Tyler Robinson, who gunned down Charlie Kirk. Now, no charges have been brought against Twiggs. This is a Daily Mail report. I just want to give you some of my own intel on this and speaking with people that have knowledge on it. Twiggs is cooperative, but he's not out of the woods. No way out of the woods. And so he's very much looked at still as a person of interest, despite his cooperation. I never totally bought those texts, by the way. I thought that was really weird. Anyway, the FBI insider that spoke to the Daily Mail, and I have some intel on this, and that I have brought it up with some people, but you know, there's other folks that are pretty out there, including our friend Ana Paulina Luna, the representative from Congress, who has been making this connection because she has done a lot of research into a Chinese-funded communist group that is run by a guy, is funded by a guy who actually lives in China, but is an American citizen. And a lot of money has been poured in to propaganda. I guess I should say allegedly, because he denies it. But the New York Times did a massive, massive story on this. Even the Daily Beast, right? The Daily Beast is super left wing. They did a massive story on it as well. And it turns out there are connections, I'm going to get to that in a second, between that Chinese funded communist operation and funding for this particular group. This woman, Amira Fanayan, she's the daughter of Iranian immigrants, and she is the one that started Armed Queers. Her social media account she took down right away after Kirk's assassination, as well as any images that were posted online, as well as her Venmo history, as well as anybody that was associated with that group immediately scrubbed all of their social media history. And that's actually partly why the FBI is so interested, right? They're like, what is going on? There were also some weird things that happened. Remember when I told you about somebody writing a song about how Charlie Kirk was going to die on that day? And that song account came out of the Salt Lake City area. And then somebody wrote a song about how his death would not be enough for them. So there are just a few things that, are kind of adding up in very peculiar ways. And one of the concerns is that somebody was radicalized and did something on behalf, right, of this Armed Queers group, which I'm going to get to their funding, is believed to have been funded in part by this Chinese American. He's actually American, but he lives in China. So this is something that was recovered by, credit to the Daily Mail. I'm assuming they got this from FBI contacts. This is in Salt Lake City. You can see they were proudly posting about their armed queers at rifle practice. They said, our members' skills develop in holistic ways, focusing not only on becoming effective organizers in the struggle, but also gaining essential self-defense knowledge. Above all, we believe building these skills through a foundation of strong commandments and united support. So armed queers, again, in that area. This is Representative Anna Polina's tweet. She pointed out, again, that this woman who started this organization, Armed Queers of Salt Lake City, is actually part of this PSL organization. Okay, and that's what I'm going to get to in a second, because the PSL organization is something that's run by, or funded, I should say, not run, but funded, reportedly by this Neville Singman and the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. So she's asking, why did Armed Queers SLC delete their Instagram after Charlie was murdered? Why is Neville Singman associated with a radical extremist group like this that, you know, could possibly have ties to Charlie's assassination? It's a good question. And, you know, if we are to assume all of their innocence, it may be partly why they took down all of their social media posts, because they knew that they would be subjects of interest. If we're to not assume as much innocence, then again, we think they'd be smart enough to have done it ahead of time. But it could be that this was part of the radicalization process. Maybe they didn't know that the kid would go through with it. But there are, in fact, a lot of questions, and I think they're fair questions to be asking right now. Again, I say this as somebody who really, who was also a colleague of Charlie's, because the same company that sold his show, when I do those Balance of Nature ads, sold my show, and we both had podcasts, and we were both in the media business, and we're both conservative, and it just breaks my heart. Again, I think Anna's asking some real questions, some important questions. I want to get to what this organization is. So this Party for Socialism and Liberation is quite actually the Communist Party here in America. Communism, Marxism, this is like from their wiki page, okay? International People's Party, it's far left, and they're proud of it, and they've been bankrolling a lot of organizations on the side. So it turns out that this woman's organization actually got some money. Apparently, I don't know. I mean, this woman, I don't have her picture in Cuba, but she took her whole Armed Queers group to Cuba, and that was funded in part by the Chinese communist thing, PSL. All right, so this is all kind of intertwining, and so I think it's important to look at. I know the FBI is looking at it, and that's now been confirmed both by Anna and, of course, the Daily Mail, and I can sort of hear what I hear, rumblings in the background. This is the guy, Neville Singman. He actually married activist Jody Evans in 2016. She's the founder of Code Pink. They're quite a liberal group. They used to actually protest against China because of the situation with the Uyghurs there. And ever since she married him, that kind of ended, right? So they don't do any of those protests against China. They're actually very, very pro-China. He, again, insists he's completely innocent. Well, Anna Polina Luna is trying to haul his you-know-what into Congress. And so she's subpoenaed him, but they're not getting anywhere because he's not coming back to this country, right? Like, he has no interest because he will have to answer for some of these questions. But this is sort of the scary stuff, this gobbledygook that Josh Hawley was talking about earlier is not such gobbledygook when it starts taking a very sort of scary path. And I don't know how else to describe this, but this was truly, truly awful, right? What happened to Charlie. And every time I think about it, I kind of tear up. It's been a pretty emotional time. And look, we're doing great here on the channel. I thank you for all that you guys are doing. Again, I want to get to some of these messages. But first, again, bringing you up to speed at this moment, we're looking at the countdown clock here. And I promise I won't do that to you. But we are looking at that shutdown likely happening. And Donald Trump is taking advantage of it. So this is a bad game of chicken. And what makes it really interesting as a game of chicken is in this particular game of chicken, like once you blink, right? Once Schumer says, I blink, and midnight strikes, tonight at midnight, guess what? Trump is firing all these people. So they're not going to come back. So Doge gets to do what Doge wanted to do. And as a result of that, I think the Democrats are going to be in really worse shape, really, really worse shape. I've seen things all over Twitter and TikTok today with people saying, oh my gosh, like what's happened to my party? Why doesn't my party care about me anymore? Why do they care about, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, or Jose, Juan, and I'm running out of Spanish names. Sorry, right? Like, what's going on? Why don't they care about me, and my safety and my health care? And we don't have the money. Where does it come from? I realize, people think there's like a printing press. It has to come from somewhere. You can't just keep bringing people in and having them, live high off the hog and think that, no one's actually going to have to pay for this. One of my kids is reading Animal Farm right now in school. I'm like, oh, there's a lot that we can glean from this, which is, at the time when it came out, very much an indictment on communism, Marxism, Leninism, you name it. So let's see. I think a small limited government would do us all a lot of good. And to Leslie's point earlier, you know what? They get rid of all the fat. And maybe this is what it takes for us to pare down into something very, very different. Cat Crazy, thank you again for your generosity. I'm seeing a few people here who want to get into specifics about what's going to go. We can talk about that. Because there is kind of a big, long list. I would say, the most important stuff, you're still going to keep going. People are still going to keep getting their Social Security checks, all of that. So it's not as scary as they try and make it out to be. And the left is certainly trying to do this. But I would say, who the heck, wants any of this? We don't want to have to do this. This is not the direction that anyone would want to see the country necessarily go in. But I think Donald Trump is the kind that's saying, hey, let me take this lemon situation. Let me make a lemonade out of the lemons right now, because we've been handed a bad scenario. They want to do something that's not going to happen. We're not going to spend $1 trillion more on healthcare for people who are not here legally. And before everybody fights with me, I know you guys won't. But before somebody fights with you, here's what you need to know. Okay, the $1 trillion, yes, Hakeem Jeffries is right. Legally speaking, the federal government can't give any of that money to people who are not here legally in the country. But you know what they do? They dish it out to all of the states. And all of the blue states say, come one, come all. And you got places like California that want to give free healthcare for all illegals. And suddenly you're in a bad situation, economically speaking, right, as a nation, because we can't afford it. In California, they're teetering on bankruptcy. For goodness sake, Chicago can't afford anything. You'd think they'd take the federal help with the National Guard. They can't even afford to pay their police. They got 160 of them on detail for Brandon Johnson and his wife. He was asked recently, would you be willing to give up a few? And he started going off again about how it's not about police protection. It's about housing. It's about this. They're all a bunch of socialists. Enough, okay? Socialism doesn't work. Go live in Venezuela and you'll find out. Yeah, all right? But don't burden us with that. We don't want to have any part of it. No, thank you. No, thank you. You heard me mention balance of nature a little bit earlier in the program. I want to remind you to think about taking Balance of Nature. Balance of Nature, actually a wonderful product. Let me see if I can get them up on the screen here, because you get 35% off with my code. Yes, my code. If you use the Trish Regan code. Well, where did this thing go? I might just have to type it in by hand. But balanceofnature.com. You help to support the show. You help support yourself, clearly, because it's good for you. Balanceofnature.com. I just want to remind you guys that we are brought in part to you by balanceofnature.com, where if you look on the back of the ingredients bottle, you'll actually know what's in there. Seriously. You'll recognize the ingredients, which is kind of an amazing thing, is it not? Code Trish. Make sure you use it. That's how I get credit, and that's how you get your 35% off. So go check it out, balanceofnature.com today. We got so much going on. Thousands possibly being laid off. We'll know more at midnight tonight. I will be back with you, of course, again tomorrow. Please make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. Thank you for being here. I'll see you soon.